again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the host of the podcast. Today, I'm talking with Mike Irvine from the class of 2004. And it does not seem like that could be right. Is that right, Mike?
That is right. I agree with you. It's a little hard to think that nowadays, but that is true. The class of 2004.
That has been a few years, and even though we've kept in touch, and I know what's going on, why don't you update everyone with where you're at and what's going on in your life?
Yeah, thanks, Buzz. Appreciate that. So currently, I'm living in the St. Louis, Missouri area, and right now I work for Boeing, and I'm in corporate communications work now, and I am the program communicator for the FA-18 Super Hornet and EA-18 Growler, U.S. Navy fighter jets. As I'm sure, hopefully my pictures are showing up in the background of them. And living here with my wife and my two kids, 4 and 10. And realizing that I'm getting close to a 20-year college reunion. It's not that far away, which is pretty amazing to think about.
Yeah, we were just kind of chatting before we started here, and you remember when my kids were little, because they would occasionally come to the sports productions, and now your kids are in the same age bracket, I think, that my kids were. So what a great blessing.
Yeah, it really is. Just great ages, great times of life. And I remember your son being at the live truck when we were doing football games. I can remember him coming around, and to hear he's an adult in his life, it's like, man, the time does go by fast.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Mike Irvine, because I want to get into, I always, find it's interesting of what may have influenced you growing up, because you're from the Quincy, Illinois area. Mm-hmm. Did you go to Quincy High? Were you
I did.
in the school district there? Okay.
Yep.
So, early on, did you find that you had an interest in terms of, I knew you probably had an interest in outdoors and sports and things like that. But what about the media? When did that come along?
Yeah. It's really interesting. So growing up in Quincy, you hit the nail on the head. I love the outdoors. I love sports. And I was always fascinated by the sports guy and the media and the broadcasting. And, I was fortunate that my uncle was good friends with the local sports guy at the time. He was at KHQA, which I actually ended up working for at one point, right? But he always sort of seemed so other, right? Like people just magically land in these jobs. It's not like a real career, right? Is that really obtainable? And I was fortunate, blessed to have two parents who work hard, chase what you want to do. Like, just, it boils down to that. Just keep grinding, work hard, and chase something that you want to do. And admittedly, I was not the best high school student. I didn't thrive very well there, but I did write for the high school newspaper and cranked out sports stories and whatever stories I could come up with. And so that helped kind of guide me to what I could do, right? It's a real class now in high school. And then, it was, well, where am I going to fit? Where am I going to go? I didn't have a great plan when I was a senior in high school, admittedly. And I did a year at the community college there in Quincy, John Wood. And I was still very much, figuring out where I'm going to fit, what I'm going to chase. But I had this little thing in the back of my head where I knew I wanted to do something in broadcasting. It was still there. I was still a kid who would mute blue hockey games out of KPLR St. Louis and rather call the game myself, right?
Yeah.
So I had a chance to go see Western on a John Wood tour. It was my first chance on campus. And we walked into Salee Hall, and all of a sudden, this is real. This is a real place and a real thing. This is not communications degree as I thought it was. This is a real focus on broadcast and media, and that's a real studio and a real camera. And from then I was this is it. I'm gonna wrap up this year at John Wood. I'm gonna get myself transferred to Western, and I'm gonna dive in. And I still remember signing up for classes and what it felt like to say, I'm a broadcasting student. Like, I'm really going to study this little bug that's just been in my ear my whole life. And now it's a real thing that I can study.
And your story, Mike, is so similar to so many of our majors who they have this creative energy and this ability, in a way, to communicate, but they just, they along the way in the school system, they haven't had the same type of success. They haven't found a way to celebrate their abilities yet. And when you get involved and you start to be doing some of the broadcasting things and you see this personal growth, which I saw over the years that you were here, what kind of things did you start to, like, what was your first thing you remember doing in Salee Hall?
Oh, wow. I remember. I transferred in, as I mentioned. And so I showed up week one, and I was the new guy to that class, right? I mean, some relationships were already formed. There were some people that were going to be 4-year students. And I was like, I'm not going to get a chance to do this stuff. People already know. And that was my own bias, right? That was my own negativity. And then boom, flyer on the wall, sports truck, auditions to be the anchor, auditions to call the game. Anybody can do this. And I was like, well, there's an opportunity. It doesn't matter that I transferred in. None of this matters. Right now, here we are, week one, day one, and these flyers are posted, and I can go attempt to be on WWIR3, right? I can be an anchor, and I earned one of those spots. And so here I am in my first semester, and it's Monday night, and here you go, Mike, you're live. Give us your sports, and it was real. It was that opportunity from the moment I showed up to be hands-on. Of course, the college football season is at the beginning of the semester, and the first Saturday, here we are with our live truck running cables, setting cameras, spinning the wheel for replay because I'm old enough. That's how we did it back then, right? Like rewind it back. Okay, play. I'm ready, Buzz. I'm ready. All that. It was so immediate, and it was so real. And I could just roll my sleeves up and dive in. One of the things that I've loved about Western through my career is that this is hands-on work. This is get out and do it. I mean, I'm leaving our podcast here to go do a video out on the St. Louis flight ramp here, and so that's still a chance to be hands-on, and that ability to do that just for me, just the motivation, the desire to learn it, be good at it, be part of a group of people who had the same interest was just day one. We took off with it.
In honor of you today, I have on, it's hard to see, but I have the old polo on.
The old polo. I still have mine. It's terrific.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, the thing about that was we had such a great crew of young people, because it took, well, first of all, unreeling all those cables. And then, that was not the glamorous part of the sports production of rolling out camera reels and in all types of conditions. And I think even when we were at Western Hall, when we would go inside, still it took everyone to do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I can vividly remember some of those cold weather days where we were taping garbage bags around the cameras because of the sleet and the rain coming down, and get your poncho tied tight. And then the game ends and you're, now we got to take it all back down. Right. I mean, those were some, and you just enjoyed it because you were doing something that you cared about. It was unique. Right. I mean, a lot of people are fascinated by this industry. And for us, it was real. We were the people who really brought the games to everyone.
And our productions, I was always so proud of our productions from every aspect of it. The people that worked in the truck, our camera people, and the announcers. You talked a little bit about announcing. Do you remember, can you tell the viewers a little bit about what you were selected for, what you remember announcing?
Yeah, and I have two memories that came to me when we united to do this. And the first was, I don't know if you remember the very first thing, but I was going to you saying, hey, I want to call these games. I want to call football. How do I get in there? And the first chance you gave me was, well, go to Macomb High School with a camera and call the game. And ultimately we actually aired the tape. Yep. So there I am. They couldn't fit us in the booth there. So we took a ladder and got on the roof with one camera, and I sat up there in a metal chair with notes, and called a high school football game. And I have a photo from that. And I wish I could remember who was with me. I've tried so hard to remember his name, but he ran camera that day and he snapped a photo of us up there. And I still have it. And just that, like, I'm doing this. And we gave the tape to you and we aired the game. And then that went into the actual, here I am, Division I college basketball. I'm calling a game. And then the other one that jumped out to me was you had Eric Fry on a few weeks back. And I heard him when he said, Mike and I calling baseball. And I went right back. And it was one of those times where, I think that everyone's always searching for the perfect broadcast, to call the perfect game, to have the perfect sports show, to tell the perfect video story, right? And that's totally elusive. You're always chasing that, but you have these moments where we were together. The crew was great. The chemistry was great. We just put on a good one. And he and I called a Michigan State game, and it was a doubleheader, and we flip-flopped. I did play-by-play on the first time, and he did color, and the second game he did play-by-play and I did color. And it was one of those times where it's like we're figuring, like, you're not that you're good, but you're like, we're getting this, it's coming, the skill's coming, and we just got to keep sitting here in these chairs, and we got to keep calling this game, and we got to keep reviewing these tapes, and we're going to get there. And I hadn't thought about that, and when he mentioned it on your podcast, I was right back in that seat on that spring day, the ping of college baseball, so that those were fun memories to come back on and think about things that are almost 20 years ago now.
And if somebody would have told me back at that period of time that, hey, these two guys, look where they're going to be in 15 years or so, or 15 plus years, I would have taken that in a heartbeat and said, then it's every moment of this is worth it. For each, to have that experience with you guys, to be able to provide those kind of opportunities.
Yeah. Well, a shout out to Eric in the career that he's built. And if anybody who listens to this is not listening to that podcast, please go listen, because his story, what he's built as a true sports broadcaster, I'm envious of his Saturdays.
I am too.
It's really incredible. And he was, always a great guy then, a great guy now. And thanks to, social media, I've been able to watch his career and all that go. And I just so enjoyed his podcast when I got to hear his full story.
So, Mike, what else do you remember of doing or faculty, other students on Salee Hall?
Yeah. Just the faculty was so great. I mean, you and Tom and I had, Sharon Evans at the time took an interest in me, and I built a great relationship with Roger Sadler. And all of the staff was great. I was very blessed to have a lot of welcoming people, a lot of people who were willing to challenge you and push you to be better and do that in the right way. And, it's funny, I was so focused back then on, I'm going to be the sports broadcaster. I'm going to call college sports. That's what I'm going to do. And I remember we had faculty who were corporate communicators. And there was some professors who had actually worked on the original Stealth Bomber program. And so here I sit today doing what they had taught me about back then, and how their skills as a broadcaster had translated to what they were doing for a defense contractor. And that's exactly where I'm at today. So, here I am all of these years later, and, really what to me, I kind of consider my third career, the third place I've worked in my professional career. And I think I was being taught about this when I wasn't smart enough to realize it. When I was back in college, so fixated on one area, I was gaining all this knowledge. So that was certainly, a memory that sticks out to me. And there were so many great people. And I remember how many things, the room we were allowed to do things. Freddie, who just decided we needed a Saturday morning radio talk show. And we would all just show up and talk. And it was unscripted, unformatted. And it was, how do we sound? And, when I was there, we had two very defined classes. One was how to be a reporter, and the other was how to be a news photographer. And I, for whatever reason, took those classes the same semester, which maybe in hindsight, I don't recommend, but I did. And so I would have one full day where in the morning, I was the reporter working with the photographer. And then I just took that equipment, met the reporter, and then I flip-flopped. And to experience both sides of doing that job in a single day like that, and then be involved in the editing on all of that. Yeah, those were long, hard days, but boy, you learned what you could accomplish. You learned to appreciate what everyone did. And, ultimately I spent time as the old expression was a one-man band, right? That set me up to be able to do that and to go out into the field on my own and quick turn stories and make the noon, make the 6, recut for 10, because that's what the industry really became.
Now that we've had some time to reflect back upon your career, Mike, I think of all the things that you were doing back then and how, really was preparation for what you would be doing, because it was remarkable of when you left WIU, and we're going to get into that of where your travels took you, but you had all these wonderful abilities that you were working on, and it just really has worked to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And it's absolutely true. And that's why Western was the right fit for me, because I needed that elbow deep experience to learn. And I don't know that I would have gotten that other places. And there, for the entire time I was there, I mean, as much as I was a college student, I felt like I worked for a production company. And that's what I so wanted to do, And so it did set me up for all of these various things that I have done, since then.
Well, we had an ambitious sports schedule. I would say that we were
yes, we did.
Were we going to do baseball? Yes, let's do baseball and softball. How about some swimming and diving? How about, we were like taking on the world.
We broadcasted everything, and we branched that out to the high school. We broadcast Macomb High School wrestling meets. Like we just, you guys never stopped us to try it. And it's like, yeah, take the gear, go see what you can do. And it was trial by fire, but boy, do you learn a lot when you do it that way.
I forgot that you were probably the first person I sent out to Macomb High at that period of time. And then we continued that. I mean, that was something that our freshmen continued to do because they saw that as an opportunity to get their foot in the door. And now I'm going to remember, I'll call it the Mike Irvine experience. So.
I like that.
So Mike, when you graduate WIU, you started working in local television. You want to talk about how that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like a lot of us, I really felt I'm going to go to the big network and I'm going to be this major college football announcer forever. And of course, that's a tough road. And there are some great people that do that. And I was sending out resume tapes as fast as I could, as often as I could. And the first pickup I got was my hometown of Quincy. And I picked up a weekend news anchor and creative services producer job for them. So I went back home. And for the next year and a half, I just did everything they would throw at me. I had this opinion that there were no days off. I knew I needed to improve. Knew I needed to get good. Chris Dewar, who I believe is still the sports guy there, is a tremendous person for your first job to mentor. Yeah, absolutely. And so he took me under the wing, and I just did everything I could. I made local car commercials. I filled in as the weather anchor when they needed it. Did all the local sports with Chris, covered the news. So that was valuable in sharpening the skills. It was valuable in learning how to multitask, but it also showed me that ultimately the news business itself was not where I wanted to be. And that was a little scary at first. I'm glad I did it. Those are some great people. I have some of my best friends that I have to this day came out of that station, but I knew this was not my entire life. So that's when I kind of started to think, where else might I want to go? What else do I want to look for? And that's what's kind of led me on this journey that's ultimately landed me where I am today. So
you had this detour where you went down, and it was in Tennessee, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I went to Nashville. So I was able to cross paths with a producer, an executive producer with Outdoor Channel, a real legend in the outdoor TV business. And of course, growing up as someone who loved the outdoors, I knew him well. I recognized him as soon as I saw him. And I got hired by him as an associate producer. And I moved to Tennessee. I lived in Nashville. And I worked for him just cranking show scripts. So I made this transition to cable TV and long form production. And really, it was a great time of life because everything was on the road. So I would travel in 1 year more than some people would do in their entire lifetimes. And I went all over every corner of North America. Got to go see the Qu'Appelle Valley in northern Saskatchewan and just think about how few of people have actually been here and have seen this. And again, I mentioned Chris as a mentor. This mentor, just continue to be fortunate to have people who invested in my development. And really, that was where, as a writer, things changed for me. And I feel that that's when I could really start to craft true video stories and grow from that. And we were sponsored by the U.S. Army. So I started bouncing around to all the Army bases and have some just crazy adventures from that. My wife has a great idea for me to write a book and unreal stories from life on the road and years in the media, because, just incredible things. I randomly found myself in the middle of the night on a Black Hawk helicopter loaded with Australian Special Forces while they're flying night training operations, and I'm running a camera with night vision capability. And that was when I learned doors on Black Hawk helicopters are optional. I wish I hadn't picked the window seat, right? And just things like that. And again, it was trying to take opportunities. I had a chance to host my own show for a few years and had some really significant success with that. And we traveled it all over and had a really awesome run. And everything in television's limited, right? There's only so many seasons of pretty much everything. And so had a really just tremendous run doing that.
And you're learning to speak to different audiences, not only different audiences, you have different people that you're dealing with as you've learned along the way. I mean, absolutely different than a network television station. Yep. Now you're learning, different skills.
Yes, absolutely. Aside from the actual script writing and producing and field directing and running the crews and all that, you're learning to take care of sponsors. You're learning the advertising part of this. You're learning about sales, and you're learning to take care of the network and the audiences and what are people responding to and watching. And, it's great to talk about the successes, but there are certainly shows that went nowhere and pilot episodes that, just didn't happen. And you have to look at that and say, okay, why didn't this work? Okay, let's move on and apply it from the next time. I mean, a lot of this business is, and when I say business, I mean exactly what I'm doing today. Try things. If they work, you keep going and you perfect. If they don't, why didn't they? Apply that and move on to the next thing, because it just keeps coming. The work and the media keep coming. So you got to roll with that and be ready to take on some new challenges and try new things. And a lot of it won't work. That's okay. It's, nothing wrong with a failure if you've learned something from it.
Well, I always appreciated, Mike, that you sent a picture of you at work, and then you'd always send the DVDs. And my students in class, I would have them watch the DVDs. We every semester would spend some time and say, but I wanted them to understand that, especially the sports guys, because I saw how that impacted you. You were I'm going to be a sports guy, but then you have this, and I'm like, see how he's grown. Mm-hmm. He's gone into a different arena now. You were doing shows where they were shooting guns and things like that. And I would tell people when I'd give tours and stuff and say, I would jump every time the gun would go off. There would be no hiding the fact that I couldn't do that. I said, but look at, but I wanted people to expand their horizon. And that's what I really was so proud of what you were doing at that period of time. And I just always thought that was so awesome that you were doing that.
I appreciate that. And, Buzz, it's amazing how much translates, because we ultimately, for like the competitive shooting matches, like the Olympic shotgun sports and things like that, they hadn't been covering that. When I say they, the network, the shows, in a sportscaster way. And I like to think that I helped usher in some of that. And we started calling that stuff in real highlights, putting together more of this sportsy feel that I started with at WIU. So I was able to take that original passion and blend it into that great opportunity and that outdoor passion. And that's really something I'm really quite proud of, years later, having known to have left that mark on that.
So then you move into this next phase of your career.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? Because that's what I'm really interested in finding out.
Yeah. So I work for Boeing now on the defense side, and it's coming on 7 years that I have been here. And so 7 years ago, Boeing was standing up essentially a news bureau. They wanted to bring broadcasters in with that talent, with that skill set, and start applying that through their communications function. And I saw it, and I knew I had an interest in the military and being part of a company that supports that, and I thought, boy, that's a really interesting opportunity. And just to show you how important relationships and network are, the sports anchor at Quincy, who I first interned for, is also at Boeing doing this job. And I thought, how crazy that our paths would cross again, and I'd run into an old colleague like that here. So I applied, and my parents live close to St. Louis, so it made sense to make a move at that time of my life, and they offered me the role, and then I showed up at Boeing. And I've really moved around a lot here at this company. So I was brought in to be a video producer and tell video stories and crank out content that looked very much like a news station was doing it, both internally and externally. And I have been fortunate enough to grow and be promoted, and have worked on campaigns to win contracts. I got a chance to spend some time on the commercial side, and now I lead the program communications for the Super Hornet fighter jet.
How cool is that? Does that mean you get to fly home?
I wish, the commute is so much shorter, so much shorter now, Buzz. But I do get a tremendous front row seat when I'm out there with the camera when new jets are flying, which is just awesome.
Well, I agree. We had some jets fly over at a recent WIU football game, and it's not until you're actually see the jets fly over, somewhat close to you, that you get an idea of like the majesty, the brilliance of these machines, and how awesome they are, and what it takes not only to fly them, but to put them together.
Yes, absolutely. I was admittedly a little nervous about jumping into a corporate communications like this. I mean, that was a big change going from TV and getting around the people that I'm with. The expression, well, it's not rocket science. Well, it actually is here. I mean, it really is. And what the people who build these planes, and the development, and the engineers, it's really is incredible what people are able, just how intelligent people are. And my role is to take that complex and take that super detail that they work in and live in, and what it takes to make these planes, and bring that into a message the rest of the world can see. And that's where I, as a communicator, step in. And I really do consider myself privileged that between the Boeing employees and the U.S. Navy that I work with as the main customer for Super Hornet, I get to tell these stories. And that's so much of what my job is. We delivered a brand new version of the Super Hornet a few months ago, and I'm sitting on the flight ramp getting ready for it to fly and go right up over us and pitch over the building. And that's a moment in history. And I've gotten to have so many of those already, and get that information out, get those images out for the world to see. I mean, aviation is just so critical, so important to the world. And to get to have a little piece in that is really, really special. And I've met some truly incredible people along the way doing it.
And where have you been in the last 7 years, Mike? Because I'm sure you've been around, you continue to travel.
Yeah, I continue to travel. Of course, things slowed down on that front significantly. But before that, I was bouncing a lot of bases again. I was hitting the Air Force bases in Florida, going out to some of the bases on the West Coast. I spend a lot of time going to Washington, D.C. I was unbelievably fortunate that, early on, I got a chance to fly in a C-17, and I was talking to the pilots, and a C-17 takes a crew of 4. Can sit 4 up front, and they were like, "We've got an extra seat. Why don't you come sit with us?" So I'm sitting there with my camera, and I'm going to interview these pilots, and this big C-17 flakes off, and you just have to take moments to just look, get off the camera and be like, I'm here. This is real. I'm really sitting here with these incredible pilots and this unbelievable piece of machinery, and we're going to fly up the Atlantic coast, and I'm here for that. So so some really awesome things like that I've been able to go, and I'm sure travel is getting back to picking back up, and we'll see what adventure comes next.
That is so awesome. That my fear would have been I don't want to push it. I want to make sure that I'm not going to touch any button.
No. It's of course, to me, I'm like, what am I looking at? It's
Yeah.
complicated beyond I can understand. And these pilots are so cool and so calm. They're so casual about everything because of course they are. They're pilots. What's going to rattle them ever, right? So no big deal. I was like, I know my camera, and I'll stay on my camera, and I'll enjoy the view, and I won't make any sudden movements.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the joys and the challenges of your job, because I'm sure there are times, even, we were talking before, you've been working from home
Mhm.
since the pandemic at different times, but now you're back to work and doing some office time. But what were some challenges along the way for you?
Yeah, I think, if I look at kind of everything, since then, really the challenges were changing careers. Those are big challenges. Going from, coming out of college thinking, like I said, I'm going to call college football games forever, and that wasn't the path. So then I jump into TV news and realizing I don't think this is for me. That's scary, right? And then it's the leap into outdoor TV, and boy, is this real? Am I really going to do this, right? And am I going to be good at it? And all of those fears go on. And then the same thing when I came to Boeing. I mean, I work with unbelievable communicators. There's the skills and talent around this place are incredible. And am I going to fit in? Am I a fool? Should I have stayed in TV? Right? You worry about those things when you make these jumps. And everything. I think everything can be a challenge you want it to be, because I try to really dive in and learn from peers and learn from the experiences and learn from the different situations that I'm in. And there's always a challenge. You gotta roll with the punches. There's always a Camry battery dies. You've got a tech issue. Hey, we were going to do something and we're delayed to get there, and are we going to miss it? So there's always those technical challenges to work through. I don't care which part of this business you go through, but I think for me, overcoming the fear of taking these leaps, it was definitely the bigger challenges for me to get over, and realize that I do have a seat at this table. I have learned how to be good at this, and I do bring value to the table. I would definitely say, though, that was really kind of a overview of what I found to be challenging in this journey.
Okay. Well, let's go back to what gave you that self-confidence and the willingness to adapt. Do you think that that's a family trait?
Yeah, absolutely. I can always have my parents in my ear that says, don't let anybody outwork you. That was the best advice they ever gave me. You may not be the smartest, won't be the biggest, won't be the fastest, won't be the most connected. You'll never be that person, maybe once in a while, but you'll never always be that person. But you can always just keep trying and keep working. And then through that, I learned to embrace failure, right? You're going to make some mistakes in doing this. That's okay. That's how you get better. One of the hardest jobs I had at Boeing was I jumped right into the middle of a major campaign, and I didn't know much about being a program communicator at that point. And the people that asked me to step in knew that, and they wanted to challenge me with that. And it was okay to make mistakes in front of them. And they helped me get it right along the way. And if I look at my corporate communications career, that was really one of my biggest periods of growth. I look back at that and go, gosh, I really wasn't that good at doing this at this time, but I had this amazing time to grow from diving into the challenge and not being afraid to make some mistakes and just keep pressing forward and going for it.
So is that something I'm sure you're going to share with your kids for the rest of their lives?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's Irvine. That's Irvine 101. Just get up, shake the dust off, and keep going. I read David Goggins' book. I believe in that stuff because it really does matter. And Buzz, to take it full circle, that's why Western worked for me. I just dove into that, and we just did it, and we did the work, and we kept going. And I spent a lot of my life thinking, I don't really think I could actually do this. This sort of stuff isn't a real job. And now I think it's got to be somebody. Why not me?
Yeah.
And that's landed me here in this place where I get to work on this incredible program and have this job that I love so much.
That's awesome. But, we always like to end, Mike, with the topic of what kind of things do you recommend? And you've already given some really great advice for our students, but for somebody, and we're gonna reflect back in terms of the young person like yourself that has this wonderful ability to be creative and has hands-on ability. what kind of recommendations do you have for that person?
Yeah, I think if I went back and talked to somebody, if I went back and talked to like young me, it would be don't say no to opportunities. That would be a big one, because I've done some really different and unique things. I've had some freelance opportunities, and there's growth and learning in all that. And just so open, again, I thought I was going to be a sports guy forever. And 3 years after graduation, I'm doing outdoor based television. That was an opportunity that if I had been too focused on just being the sports guy, I may have missed, and I would have missed a tremendous chapter of my life. And the same now. If I hadn't been willing to take that jump or that risk, I think about all the things I've missed that I get to do now, and the wonderful people that I work with and have surrounded myself with in life. So don't turn down an opportunity. Not everything is going to be this sort of straight line to what you want in your life. So roll with some chances and take those opportunities, and then just be flexible. This path, this industry is changing so much, no matter what version. I went from news to TV to corporate communications, and I've seen all of those change in that amount of time. Yeah. So be flexible. It's never going to be the way you think it is when you go into work each day. So I think that would be those are really big ones that I'd really want to pass on to others is those pieces of advice.
Man, it's been great catching up with you, Mike.
Yeah.
I tell you, it's been too long. I think the last time I remember seeing you stopped by at a graduation ceremony. Was that for a sibling?
My sister. Yeah. My sister came through Western a few years after myself. And she was a communications student, but not broadcasting. So she didn't come through Salee, but she got her communications degree through Western. So yeah, I passed back through, and I made a few appearances at some football games with the group of guys that I lived with. I landed in Higgins when Higgins Hall stood, and I lived with the same group of guys the entire time I was there. Just great group of guys, great friends. And I did make a few football games, but it certainly has been some years since I've been back on campus.
Well, the best to you and your family, Mike. It's been great to talk with you.
Thanks, Buzz. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
And thanks to all of our weekly viewers out there. Remember, if you're interested in being on the podcast, know somebody that might be, just send me an email. We want to hear from our alums. We hope that you continue to watch and support our department and university as well. So until next week, stay safe, take care, and God bless.